Inner City Goldie.
Yeah.
Inspire, Retire, Invasion. My House is Your House.
Yeah, you know what we could do to My House is Your House. You
All
know
right,
why?
cool.
Me and Dank and I should say. Dank put this together in 2014, the My House is Your House remixes that we did of my original 1990 track. This one I did live. This would be like me performing live. I did it all on the fly. It wasn't like, recorded beforehand. I just had stems and I just, went to work on it. And it's funny because like I'm using the technology now like in ways that I never thought was even possible. To be like making the track as you're playing it. It's a very unique concept to me. I'm still not like totally there with it, but
technology's crazy these days.
To make the whole track would take me a day to make in the studio. Now I could do it pretty much just with stems, put up the stems and mix them like you're DJing,
Yeah.
So, and I did I did this a couple hours, but the actual, what you're listening to, just did it on the fly. So,
Man, I was looking on Beatport, trying to pick songs to have ready for your interview, and the catalog is just so deep. And I know that catalog is digital.
Yeah. Even the SoundCloud page is the best page for my stuff because I focus on it. So where Beatport's just selling,
Copy that. Do you have a favorite track or something that stands out?
I was discussing this with my boy Frank on the way here, and Dank is like to pick one song.
God.
You got me all nervous on it because I don't. It's different. You've been DJing 35, 40 years. It's like to mention one song. It's like there's a lot of songs, but.
Yeah.
But if anything, the song Fantasia, Inner Light, and Violet Skies. That's Lords of Acid. Nikki's the girl who sung on it.
Yeah, I remember that.
30 years old the song is now. But Violet Skies and Inner Light, it's very influential rave records early on in our scene, and they still sound good to this day. That's one. But then Marathon Moving, Just Keep Moving. There's some classics that we broke a lot of music in the early 90s. Not to mention techno itself, but we came into this with Joey Beltram doing Energy Flash, and my brother,
Joey.
My brother was very close with Joey as graffiti writers, and then when I met him, we had a lot of people in our clique that was making this music, Mundo Musique, Howlin' Little, we had all these guys, just Jimmy Crash, and then Heather Hart came into it. We were like a little just unit, and everybody was just making these great records, and at the time you don't know you're making history while you're making history because it's not history yet. So
yeah,
but I would say looking back at techno 30 years, Joey Beltram Energy Flash to be like the number one techno track of all time, it's not far-fetched to say that. The only thing that I think could handle that would be like Derek May's Strings of Life, but still in all that's like a house track, even though it's like Energy Flash was just instant dance floor. You were in it, and 30 years later, it still sounds like that. So
yeah, it's
a killer.
Yeah,
he's doing really well right now. Also,
and then Lenny D too. Like there was, I don't know who started this, but someone was talking about who's the king of hardcore, right? So is it Lenny D or is it Marco Cartapane the Mover? And I'm analyzing this because I know what Lenny did for hardcore, but the thing was Lenny started Industrial Strength Records off with the Movers track. That was the first release on Industrial Strength, and I think that the Marco Cartapane track. What the hell is the name of the Mover track? And I can't even think about it. We Have Arrived. That's the track. Mescaline United. Those Mover tracks in the early 90s, that's what fueled Storm Rave to make it what it was. The Mover went under a lot of different names, but there was some just futuristic hardcore techno is what I called it. It was like this kid had power plants and nuclear fission happening in his backyard when he was making those tracks.
Do you have an encyclopedic knowledge of electronic music?
I basically
writing a book.
Yeah. I'm getting the book together, but the thing is, it's like people say, how do you have such a good memory? But the thing is, if you're making like kind of historical things happen, you remember things. I remember things through songs. So if I hear a song, it brings me right back to the club I was in or where I was. And my experience was very unique because all right, so Todd Terry was the king of New York house, like in '88, right? And he was about 6 months ahead of me in production and in his career. Those 6 months, like, actually, before I went to London, it made me feel kind of obsolete because, like, you know, the way he was having his success, I was having a minor success in New York. But then this London thing happened where we're pressing, you know, I'm doing volumes of Bones Breaks. So the first one sold 4,000. That's cool. It's a lot of records. The second one selling like 10,000, and like 6,000 of them went straight to London. We didn't know what was going on. Like, that was just like, wait a minute. So one city across, you know, the pond is taking all these records. What's going on there? And then we heard about this rave scene, you know, like. So I get the call, you know, do you guys want to come play this rave? And 5,000 people in London. And we were like, hell yeah. I mean,
why not?
Who wouldn't want to go? But when we got to this
Next
party,
thing you know,
25,000 people. Like, it just, it really, like, the culture had arrived by the time we arrived in that August of 1989. And to witness that, it was like going to Disney World and, like, seeing a whole crowd of people, but they're dancing to the music you're playing. And that
must have been
feeling,
incredible.
you know, that feeling is like when I got on the plane to come home, I just wanted to recreate it in, you know, New York City. And the first 9 months, it wasn't going to happen because New York wasn't set up to do what they were doing in London. But then I got booked in Los Angeles right as the rave scene hit America on the West Coast. And they taught me how to change the locks on warehouse doors. So this guy, Solomon, I don't know what his name is, but last name is, but he's a promoter out there. Let's say he cuts the locks off the gate, puts his own lock on, and says, if you come back Saturday and your lock is still on the gate, then you're good to go. So I was like, I could do this. And came back to New York. And we just, you know, we were pushing the music as a movement. The peace, love, unity movement was originally what Plur was in the beginning, you know. Coming into a legal warehouse, if you see anything funny, you got to help the people out that are around you. You know, don't ignore anything. If you see something, say something. And
is it true what they say on Wikipedia, the story about how, like, Plur, where the saying came from, that there was a fight?
Yeah, absolutely,
right,
absolutely. Now I'm gonna tell that whole story in great detail because the problem that exists now is, like, there's enough stories about Frankie Bones, like, that you heard this story or that. Like, now you just got to tie the whole thing up from where it started.
Let's do it.
Go through it. And, like, the Plur thing happened. It was, like I said, it was a movement. We weren't going around preaching it, but we were trying just to get people to know that this was a peaceful movement starting through techno music. And it was during a very violent time in New York City. Yusuf Hawkins got murdered in Bensonhurst in 1989. The weekend that I went to London the first time, just a kid on the wrong block at the wrong time, and a lot of ignorance amongst, you know, people coming in and out of neighborhoods. This is New York City. We should be able to walk through any part of New York we want to walk through because we're New Yorkers. But in the 80s and 90s, it was very territorial. Each neighborhood, you couldn't go to Canarsie if you were from Bensonhurst. You couldn't go to the South Bronx if you were from Queensbridge, you know. So a lot of the stuff we did was just following hip-hop because hip-hop was 10 years in front of rave.
Sure.
1979, Rap is the Light. 1989 is when rave. So, you know, we were hip-hop kids from the streets, and then we were into hip-hop hardcore. I mean, like, I used to buy hip-hop records just as much as I bought dance records, but it wasn't my calling to be a hip-hop DJ. I just was a fan of the music. But, you know, like those Public Enemy records, Beastie Boys, LL Cool J, the whole Def Jam from the beginning, that inspired us. And then, you know, we were speeding up hip-hop break loops and putting them in house and acid and it went over to London and those Bones Breaks records to those kids because they were so like, they weren't really complex. They were just breaks that were fusing things together. Anybody from the UK heard those records was like, wait a minute, that's a record? I could make this record. And they all went and they did it themselves. And anybody that's from that part of the scene back in the day, they hold me in high regard because I was the guy that inspired them in the beginning.
For sure.
It's crazy to go to London now. You know, I've been over the last few years. I run into the Raga Twins and all these people that I know from back in the day, Fabio, Groove Rider. When I ran into Groove Rider, he couldn't even speak when he saw me. He was so shocked that I was standing in front of him. It was like amazing. And we just gave him a big hug. I mean, I was like, dude, you know, 30 years, bro. You know what I mean? I haven't seen these people, and they're all doing their thing. And this music has just not stopped. The pandemic tried to stop us, but we're right at the endemic now. So,
yeah, man.
You know, it's going to come back even stronger in the next year or two, I'm sure, you know?